Hi, I'm Brad Rosley. Thanks for tuning in again today. As I decided what I was going to share with you today, I was about to jump on a plane here in a couple hours to go to my niece's wedding in the Seattle, Washington area. And it made me think about what issues should someone consider when getting married. And I have quite a few of them on my mind. One is, don't rush into it. Marriage is forever, and it is a big commitment. And make sure you're in it for the long haul. It's not easy, but it's certainly worth it. I've been married now 27 years. I've written a couple blogs on it that you can look up. I'll put those in the show notes as well. Please make sure to give me a like or subscribe if you like what I have to say today, and share this with others if you'd like. I'm only going to hit on a handful of topics that I think are super important, but I do have a full list of topics written out that you ought to consider should you or someone you know be getting married. I'm going to hit on some of the most important ones as I see it. To begin with, let's start with your own life goals, your career goals. You need to have discussions about these up front. Don't go in blindly. Think about little things like, are you going to have joint bank accounts? Are you going to keep your money separate? My wife and I have almost completely all separate finances. She's a hairstylist. She runs her own business. She takes care of all the grocery money and the household needs, and I do a lot of the other purchases for the family. We do have one joint account, but we keep it separate, and that works for us. You have to come up with a system that'll work for you. You also want to come up with joint savings plans. How much are you putting away? Ideally, depending on your age, you're putting away at least 10%. If you want to get by at retirement and have choices, ideally, I'd like to say you save 15 to 20%. Yeah, that's a lot of money. If you are planning to have children, obviously you want to discuss that ahead of time. But I'll tell you one thing that people don't always think about is oftentimes when people get married, one of the first things they do is save for a home. And in saving for a house, I recommend strongly that if you're both working prior to buying a house and planning to have a family, that you buy your home based on one of your incomes, not both. For if you buy that home based on both incomes, and should you have children and one of you wants to either work less or not at all, you're going to be financially strapped. So don't be house poor. Buy a smaller house, have more freedom, have more money available to save or to travel with. Do not buy the house based on how much the mortgage lender tells you can afford to have as a mortgage and use that number, because then you're stuck both working full-time even after you have kids. Now, I'm not saying that you can't make that work. People do all the time. I just strongly recommend having the freedom to have options and make different choices there. Something else, depending on your age and where you are in life, is one of you bringing in debt into the marriage? Do you have student loans? Do you have credit card debt? It's a little scary, but you might actually agree to pull a credit report on each other. No secrets. It's open. You should know what's out there about your fiance. Obviously, we want to trust them, but maybe there's things out there that you don't know about. If you offer to do it first, say, listen, I think we should both do that just so we know where we stand financially. These are things people don't think about. They're in love and everything's planning the wedding, and next thing you know, sometimes people don't have the financial situation that they were hoping to get into. They're behind the eight ball. Not to say that money is the cause of bad marriages, but sometimes it is. Sometimes money issues do interfere with marriage. And I want to help you avoid that going in. So running a credit report's not a bad idea. If there is a problem with a credit report, you got to work on fixing that right away as a team. Some other things you want to look at would be your employee benefits. If you have them through your employer, maybe you both have your own health insurance right now, and you're going to have to make a choice. Well, you ought to look at those and see which one offers the best value plan for you. Maybe one of them offers a health savings account option with a high deductible, and the other person doesn't have that option. I love the HSA plan. I've done a number of videos on those. You can see the links below and that also, but that's the one I would be looking for. And then you fund that HSA and you create a whole nother avenue of tax preferred savings there. Something else you're going to want to do when you get married, you're going to want to create or update your estate plans. Most single people I know don't even have a will. You certainly want to have a will if and when you get married. Depending on your situation, you may need a trust, you may not. If it's a second marriage, that brings in all kinds of different things to think about on your estate plan, especially if you have children. So those are things you're going to have to talk about going in with your eyes wide open. If you get married, all of a sudden you have someone else in the picture. This is before you have kids, but what about your life insurance? Maybe taking the minimum just to bury you is not acceptable anymore. You're creating a life there with your spouse. Should something happen to you, you want to leave them options. Well, if you don't have a lot of savings, life insurance would come in and provide that immediate cash infusion that might allow your spouse to live in the house the two of you bought together. Might allow your kids to stay in the same school districts that they're currently at, not have to move. It just gives you choices. Stuff like that you don't always think about going in. You also want to look at your other insurances like your auto insurance. Maybe you get a better rate if you have two cars on one policy rather than each having your own individual policy. Other things, your tax filing. You want to ask your accountant or look on your tax software that you use. Are you better off filing as separately, or do you want to file as a joint return? Oftentimes the joint return will be better for you. You want to look at your withholding. Maybe because you're married filing jointly now, you're overpaying your tax, so you could withhold less out of your current paycheck. Something else to consider. What about your retirement plans? How much are you putting in your 401k? Would you be better off using a Roth 401k? Now that you're married and you have more money to save, maybe you don't want to take all the money in a tax deductible plan. Maybe you're better off paying the tax now and having tax-free later. And then, of course, you want to talk about saving. What are your long-term goals? Do you want to save for a down payment on a house? Do you need a new car? Do you not have an emergency fund? Having an emergency fund is probably the single most important thing in a happy, peace of mind marriage when it comes to finances. When the furnace breaks down, you don't have to whip out a credit card to buy a new one. Okay, when the roof needs to be replaced and it's $20,000, wouldn't it be nice if we had $50,000 in our bank account? Total peace of mind. What if you want to go somewhere on a whim? Take a long weekend away and vacation. Rather than racking up a credit card bill that you don't have the money to pay, it's great to have it in savings. Strongly recommend that. Very important. Speaking of retirement plans and insurance plans, you want to make sure you update those beneficiaries. A lot of single people would have their parents or their siblings as their beneficiaries. You're going to want to change those over to your spouse as soon as possible. One of the things is, as a newly married couple, if you're going to have children, or you do already, you'll need to include in your will who would be the guardian of your children should you both happen to die in a car accident or something terrible like that. Who would raise your children? That's something you put in a will. If you're previously married, you want to make sure you have an understanding of what claims an ex-spouse might have on your assets. I'd certainly want to know that if it were my spouse or my fiance I'm going to marry. And obviously with children, there's a lot of factors if you're bringing children into a marriage. There's also issues depending on what state you get married in. Is it a community property state or not? So those are some of the key issues I want you to think about. But when it really gets down to it, you've got to be a team. You want to create a plan and a vision. What do we want our money to do for us? We want to be frugal with our money. We want to save enough so that we can afford a vacation. We want to save enough so maybe one of us doesn't have to work full time if we bring children into marriage. We want to save enough that we don't have to work till 75 or some other age. Okay? We want to look at our cash flow and prioritize what's important. It was important to my wife and I that we take our children on vacations and spring break and Christmas break, Easter and Christmas break. That's what we did. So we didn't go out to dinner very much, so I could save more money for those vacations. It was important that when we had kids, we saved money immediately for their college. Now that may not be important to you. I'm saving for grandchildren's college and I don't even have a grandchild because that's important to me. So you want to have these conversations about money because people are also different about money. A lot of it depends on how you were raised. Okay, if you were raised and you didn't have any money, maybe you feel like, geez, I need to make out a grocery list before I go to the grocery store. Not a bad idea. When we got married, my wife and I gave her a certain amount of cash, and that's what she got to spend on groceries. At times, believe it or not, she had to take things out of her shopping cart because she didn't have enough money in cash. And it served us very well today, trust me. Okay? You want to be smart with how you use your money. You want to have a team approach. Don't let money get in the way of your marriage. Have open discussions about it, and don't be in the dark about what's going on with your money in your marriage. I hope you like this video. There's these documents. I'm going to make this available online, okay, for you on my notes, in the show notes. Please consider subscribing to my channel and giving me a like. I'd appreciate it. There's a lot of other financial planning related videos that I think you might get some really good information out of. I've also written a book called Beyond Money that's available on Amazon, and I blog at bradrossi.com. Thanks a lot for listening. I greatly appreciate it. You have a great day.